Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tyler Barker. I serve as the coordinator within the Office of Parent and Family Programs. I would like to welcome you to our Parent What's Buzzin' at Georgia Tech webinar series for all parents and families at Georgia Tech. We are so excited to have you here with us today, and we're also excited to have our Vice President of Student Life and Dean of Students, John Stein, here to talk with us about what's going on campus, and just here also just to answer any questions that you may have and just to kind of check on you as a parent to see how your semester has gone thus far. So we are so excited to have Dean Stein take some time out of his busy schedule today to be with us. And so parents and family members, if you have a question for Dean Stein as he goes over a couple updates, please look to the Q&A chat box. Drop those questions in there. We will get to those momentarily. Once again, if you have any questions for Dean Stein, please drop those in the Q&A chat box. If you give me a few moments, I will pull up the PowerPoint presentation and we will begin. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Vice President of Student Life and Dean of Students, John Stein.
Thank you and good afternoon. Thanks for joining me in this presentation. And I promise you that it'll be a little bit of a presentation, but mostly I'd like to answer questions and have more of a dialogue here. What I just want to do is to kind of frame us in terms of where we are in the semester, just so we have a sense of that. So this is week 6 of the term. And what that means is that for many students, both first year and beyond, it becomes a time that's really focused on first round of exams. Week 6, 7, and 8 are pretty intense exam weeks in any given semester here at Georgia Tech. And so students are probably really engaged and focused in terms of studying for those exams and readying themselves for them. It is not unusual for students to have multiple exams in a given week, or for the next 3 weeks to have a number of them that they have to prepare for. For first year students, I do want to say that it is also the first time that they may be on the receiving end of a grade that may fall short a little bit of where they hope to achieve. That is, again, not uncommon. First exams are exams to really learn from and to really figure out how to adjust to do the very best you can in the course, okay? Now, I do realize that we are in unprecedented times and it's very different in terms of a lot of this happening virtually and stuff. And so there's a great need to stay in contact with TAs and faculty along the way to get answers to questions and to give feedback as to how things are going. We are currently surveying all of our students through either town halls, virtual town halls, or online survey, asking them how the semester is going so far and to solicit feedback from them on the experiences they're having in the classroom, virtually or in person, with faculty, with academic support. We really want to know what the experience has been for them. We're also surveying the faculty to get their thoughts on how it's all going. So there's some individuals on the academic side of the house working on this. All of this information will be analyzed and then taken into consideration as we plan for spring semester. So it's very, very important. And as a parent, I'm going to ask you if you could check in with your student and ask if they have taken the time to either join a town hall or to complete the survey. But feedback is essential at this time, okay? Which, when we get through this week, we'll probably have about 8 weeks until we get to the Thanksgiving break. And at that point, the semester is not officially over, but students really at that time can leave. and finish the semester virtually. So they should check in with their faculty and get specifics about how the final piece of the semester will end for them. But that is the plan right now. So we will be on a fast track between now and the end of the term, and a lot will happen during that time that students will be engaged in. Not only will they be completing their courses, but they will also at some point have to pick the classes and register for spring semester. So there's some work that will need to be done as they end the semester and prepare for the next semester. Today, what I want to do in terms of student life is to reassure you that we're doing our very, very best to make sure students understand what's available on campus and ways that they can get engaged. You know, there are 4 kind of attributes that really promote success for students. And these are things that I talk about often if you've heard me in the past. But, you know, one is kind of self-control and self-regulation. And that's just that the student is kind of aware of their decisions and choices, and they are really in control of their days and kind of how they're approaching things and stuff. That's a very, very important piece in every aspect of their life. The second really is around you know, self-compassion, is to really, you know, figure out how they're feeling, what they're thinking, give themselves a break sometimes if things don't go exactly the way they hoped at that exam, they didn't achieve at the level that they did. The discouraged student who gets stuck thinking that they can't do this anymore is the student that will have a really difficult time with it. So we want to kind of figure out how to keep students engaged, how to keep them supported, how to get them the proper support that they need so that we can build on the self-compassion that they need to be exercising. It helps when I do that with a student, it helps when you do that, but most importantly, it helps when the student is able to do that themselves. The third piece really is academic engagement. And I know this is a very different time and it's not as easy to engage when you're not physically in the classroom and in the presence of other students and the faculty. But still, academic engagement virtually is still extremely important. That would be translating to actually going to class, logging on and actually being a part of things, making the connection to the faculty member, emailing your professor, emailing your TA, trying to set up an individual session with your TA if need be on Teams or another platform to answer questions, to get some guidance. But the more students are engaged academically, even in this moment, the better and more success they'll have. If the students start backing away from it, then it's going to be much, much more difficult for them. And then finally, connections, you know, and friendships. And I want to acknowledge that it's not as easy in the moment that we're in. Students are home, some of them. Students are here. Students are not engaging. They're not connecting in the same ways that they do when we're not in this time. I have been going to GT1000s as guest lecturer, and I've been asking the questions in advance, surveying students, and asking, are you meeting other people? And what I'm happy to report is that most students are saying they are meeting other people. And then I'm asking how they're doing that. Now, if they're here physically, then they're meeting other people potentially in residence halls. Okay, if they're not here in their home, they're meeting other people online. And so the point, though, is that they should really try to reach out and meet others and make connections. To try to engage in an organization, a club that, you know, will link them to other students. So we want to try to do this both on the academic side and also in terms of their life outside the classroom and stuff. Those 4 attributes, again, really help to promote success. Okay, and those are the things that we want to build on together to assist them. All right. But there are lots of things going on. And how I would say we think about this semester is that, we have been walking through phases of it. The initial phase of just trying to put it all together, seeing how it's going, seeing where we needed to adjust things and stuff, and then begin to add things as we move through it when we have a little bit more latitude and we realize that there's the ability to do it here on campus. So more and more events are being planned, of course, with all the proper guidance and social distancing and all of that, but we're trying to engage students more, and as we also build all of the virtual events that are also happening. This slide here, the weekly digest, is available to all students. It comes out every Monday because I do get it and read through it. And what it does is it highlights different things that are going on throughout the Institute that they can engage in. So you can just see from this one that there is a minor fair and showcase that's actually happening today, I believe. And again, that would be a virtual one. So it highlights some kind of academic related stuff. It highlights clubs and organizations. It highlights different cultural events that they can get involved in. And so remind them to check every Monday to see what's been planned for the next coming week or so, and to, for them to try and to log on or to attend some of these events. I think that would help. Next slide, please. So here are some things that are going on. So, as we get through the term, one of the things we are striving to do is to hold on of some of the things we do every year in terms of education, training and stuff. So every year we have a hazing prevention week, not just for Greeks. This would be hazing generally in organizations and others. So that's happening this week. Also this week is Suicide Prevention Week, and that's something that we started. We've always had a suicide prevention program, but we did start Suicide Prevention Week last year, and we built on it this year. Tremendous student involvement in planning this week. There is a talk tonight by this individual, Jordan Burnham. It's a keynote between 7 and 8. It's a virtual one. Anyone can log on. You can log on if you want to hear him. He has a very interesting story to tell and a very personal story to tell, but we've been promoting that. And then there are fun events, paint by ear. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I'm sure it's a fun event that's being planned. The picture below is from last Friday evening, when a movie was hosted on the CRC field. So you can see the movie on the screen, and then students brought their own blankets. I think they were actually given blankets, and they were able to sit and watch the movie, okay? There's another one planned for this Friday, and students can attend, okay? There's a comedy show planned. So we want you to understand that we are putting things in place and we're trying to really engage the students. It's going to be a combination of in-person and virtual. Okay. Next slide, please. These are the events that we have planned in October. We will be having homecoming the way we always do. And what we will be doing is we will have the freshman cake race and the mini 500, but it'll be done in different ways, okay? It'll be set up in ways that accommodates the moment that we're in. But again, we're gonna hold on to these traditions. There'll be a carnival on the 13th. There'll be GT night at the High Museum. You can see, and we're also doing the Take a Prof to Lunch event that we host every year and stuff. So next slide. And then in November, we will have the tradition of midnight breakfast. It'll be a grab and go this year, but we do want to, again, kind of hold on to traditions that students have valued and that the Institute values, and try to engage students into these events. Next slide. I also want to talk about mental health a little bit, because I know this is a difficult time for all of us, and the cumulative effect is such that it's taking its toll on individuals. And so I want to reassure you that we are fully engaged and fully operational. Our GT Care Center, the Center for Assessment, Referral, and Education, is operational. We're doing virtual appointments. We've done a few walk-in appointments when it was appropriate. We're doing assessments down there. To date, I think over 300 assessments have been done with students. So it is fully functional. The counseling center also has been operationalized, and students first go to care. That's the first point of entry, and then get referred potentially to counseling. They are offering virtual and some in-person counseling appointments. Okay, for someone who's looking to go off campus to meet a therapist, they're also assisting students in finding a therapist in the community. But they too have been extremely busy in working with students. They're also running 9 different groups this semester, so students are engaged. The groups are virtual, but the students are meeting with the therapist that's running the group. Psychiatry is not under our area, it's under the health center, which is under campus services. But I would say that in the last 5 weeks, psychiatry probably has had somewhere around 700 appointments. They're averaging, over 100 each week, different check-ins with students and med follow-ups and stuff. So on the mental health side, we are very, very committed to holding on to the services. We also have a full complement of after-hour emergency services that are in place, and we are responding to emergencies as they happen, and that we become aware of them. So, next slide. On the more positive, proactive, preventative side, our Health Initiatives program has all kinds of well-being things. So we don't want to just be reactive. We also want to be proactive and stuff. And they're doing all kinds of programs with students, virtually and some in person, but mindfulness and different conversations on it, on well-being and stuff. And if your son or daughter has a kind of thought on something that they would like to see, then they should reach out to Health Initiatives, and I'm sure that they would help to pull a program together. That's a great staff over there. They're all trained in all kinds of well-being and health-related matters and stuff. So we also have that happening. Next slide. Just a reminder that, we're all moving through this together, and we want to remind students to get tested on a regular basis. That's an important piece of us staying healthy and being able to continue the term. I get tested on a weekly basis, and, encourage students to do that too. Now that the semester has kind of progressed, I can tell you that usually you can go in there and get tested and get through the whole process in a very relatively short period of time, because there's many more testing places around campus, and the times have been expanded. So the long lines are really not there anymore, but students can easily access it, and please encourage them to do that. That's a very, very important piece. Next slide. So, this is my contact information, and I want to just encourage you that if you are concerned about something, you can always just call or email me. I get emails every day from family members, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Some days are easier, some days are more difficult depending on my schedule and how many emails I receive, but I'll try to get back to you. What I want to just say is that we're planning for spring term. We have not set any definitive plans right now, but we're working on that, and information will be available soon to students as to how the spring term will progress and stuff. So rest assured that that information will be coming out very soon. We're really working closely with our student government leaders and getting student input on major issues and stuff, and seeking their kind of involvement in planning as we move ahead. So I'm going to open it up now to questions that you might have, or things that you would like for me to address.
Yes, thank you so much, Dean Stein, for just sharing such great and thoughtful information for our parents and family members who are with us today. And thank you to all the 140 attendees who have joined us thus far. My first question for Dean Stein is, after Thanksgiving, can students remain home and take their final exams?
Yes, and as I said, we've been saying that for the final stretch of the term, when students leave for Thanksgiving, we would like for them to stay home at that point. The only thing I'm suggesting is that they check with their individual faculty members to make sure that nobody is saying that there's an in-person final that they must attend, okay? I just want them to double check, all right? Now, faculty have been encouraged to finish the semester in the way that we would like the students to finish the semester, and that's we get to the holiday break, and then students who want to can leave and go home, and then if others have to stay, they can stay, but that's how the term would end. But please have them check with their faculty. That's a very, very important piece. And see, that's a question that can just be asked in an email to a faculty member. It could be asked during a class session where one can raise their hand on one of these platforms and just say, can you talk to us about how the final exam will go at the end of this semester? And to do that soon, to do that now, so that you have a sense for planning for the end of the term.
Thank you so much for sharing that. The next question that we have is, when will in-person instruction resume for students on campus?
Well, look, we're hoping it's resuming over time, right? And I do want to say something that, there is instruction, in-person instruction going on now, but one of the things that we have found is that when it is left up to some students to either come or not, that the faculty member has, the model is hybrid, so they're doing a virtual and they're doing in person. Many of the students are not coming to class. They have opted out of coming and choosing to do it virtually. So classes that were set up in larger rooms to accommodate larger groups of students are having very small attendance, and it's just because that the students have chosen not to come to class. So, and I'm not blaming students, I'm just saying that that's been a reality here for us. So it's a combination of both things, the faculty teaching in person and the students coming to class. We are encouraging faculty who have the hybrid modes to continue to offer the in-person. We're encouraging faculty to consider more in-person classes spring term. We may have to still have hybrid pieces of this for international students and students who cannot make it here, but we do want to encourage more and more students to safely be in the classroom with their professor and with other students.
In regard to campus activities, what are their plans to open up more campus activities now that COVID numbers are decreasing, in particular for first-year students?
Yeah, so again, we're doing that. The campus recreation center is open. The student center is open. So there are a number of places. What we've done is we've put up 12 tents, outdoor tents throughout the campus with chairs inside them, underneath them. And they are just social gatherings. A group of friends who want to get out of the residence hall can go over and have a conversation, have a meal together, and sit under those tents. And during the day, evening, weekend, And that came as a result of students saying to us that we would like more social space outside, that we can just hang out with each other and stuff and not stay in our residence halls too often. So a number of things are open. I'm not sure exactly what people are looking for. And again, that would be helpful for us to know exactly what students are waiting for to open. So we can address that.
The next question that we have is, can there be more dine-in small groups to engage students, especially first-year students?
Dining, did you say?
Yes. So dining options in small groups.
Yes.
in physical residence hall.
Yeah.
I mean, dining. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. They could be in dining halls. They can be outside of dining halls. We have noticed that in certain, it's particularly where first-year students are, that they can. So groups go in. They get their meal, and what I'll say is that the majority of students are not sitting inside. When given a choice, if it's a nice day, then they come and sit outside on the lawn in circles and have dinner together. So none of that is prohibited. The only thing we ask is that they keep their social distance and stuff. Obviously, when you're eating your meal, you're not going to have your mask on, but they just practice good kind of the health-related stuff that our Dr. Holton has advised students and stuff. So, but those are all options, and RAs can plan to have a hall dinner outside or in the dining hall with a group. So those things are all possible, absolutely.
Will any surveys be sent out to family/parents?
I'm not sure if there's a plan to send a survey out. I think that if that's a good thought and one for us to consider. As to the experience, I do want to say we're not that we're not concerned about what the parents think, but we're more concerned about what the students' experience has been here. But certainly I will bring that to the table and see if that's a possibility that we can survey families to get their thoughts about how the semester's gone.
Yes, I think that's a great thought to discuss with our leadership. And I know you mentioned the survey for students. A parent mentioned that their student hasn't received the survey yet. Is the survey being sent out over time?
The survey has gone out. I will double check as to, and I believe it went to every student. I don't believe it went to a sample of students. So I'm not sure, but I will double check on that as to make sure that survey has gone out to all students. If that parent wants to email me directly, then they can, and we will make sure that their student actually receives the survey.
Thank you so much for that. And has the calendar been determined for spring 2021?
Yeah, I mentioned that a little bit just earlier. That is being worked on right now. Okay, so we're looking at the published dates that we had. We're trying to decide if we're going to change those dates at all. If we do, I do want to say it's not going to be a dramatic change, but we're trying to decide if we're going to change it at all. Okay, and that's what's being worked at, and that's why all of this information is being surveyed, so that we can take that into consideration as the provost and others kind of look, and the registrar look at the calendar and figure out the spring semester. We're not going to wait long on that because everyone needs to know, and that's not a last-minute decision that can be made. So that decision has to be made pretty soon. It's just that we don't have a definitive answer today.
And when we do, parents and families who are on the webinar, we will send out communication as we always do through our parent newsletter. And moving on to the next question, do students have to leave after Thanksgiving break? If they choose and if they feel comfortable, can they stay until after finals?
Absolutely. Yeah, students do not have to leave, okay? They are on a housing contract, and students can choose to stay through the time that they finish their finals and then leave from there. Probably what housing will do is to kind of just survey students to know who will be staying. That's just important for us to do for safety reasons, to know who's in the building and how many students are in that building and stuff. So, but no, they do not have to leave. They can choose to stay, get through finals, and then opt out at that point to go home. Good question. That was a good question. So.
Great question. Great question. And Dean Stein, I know you mentioned this earlier, but if you can just briefly touch on it one more time. When will professors and TAs offer face-to-face opportunities? What does that timeline look like?
Well, again, like I said, we are encouraging them to do that throughout, and we have been. And so, we're hoping that faculty will encourage more students to come to class and offer that. So that's the goal for this semester and beyond, and for next semester. So the provost has been talking to faculty and deans about that, and will continue to do that. So.
Great, thank you for touching on that again. First, thank you for all that you are doing for GT and trying to keep our students safe. Is anyone keeping track of students that have not been tested for COVID-19 or are not tested regularly? If so, is anyone reaching out to them to try to get them to participate in regular testing?
Yeah, well, we don't have a mandatory testing program, right? And so, however, we are looking at, who's tested. We have, if they're living in residence or living in Greek houses, we know the percentage of students who have tested in any given hall. So if you take Hopkins Hall, we can tell what percentage of students in Hopkins have tested since we started testing and since they've been back, versus what percentage of students in Hopkins have tested over the past week. Okay, we can do the same thing for Greek houses. All right, the challenge comes with off-campus students who are not living in our own residence or in Greek housing. And then also the challenge comes with some students may have been here but may have opted to go home. So they're going to come up as someone that's not testing, but they're not here anymore with us. They're back home. And so it's challenging to try and get a real handle on that, but we are monitoring on a daily basis the percentage of students that are, we know are physically here with us, in encouraging them. Okay, so when we see a low percentage in a given housing or residence hall or Greek, we work with them to, encourage them and increase that testing capacity. I do want to say though, generally, we have been very, very impressed with our students, and we are very, very thankful for our students. They have been extremely willing to work with us around this in keeping everyone and keeping the Institute functional and keeping everyone safe. So they've done a good job, a very good job, actually.
Yes, of course. How long will the student survey be open? My student was invited to a feedback session, but had several tests and deadlines where he could not attend the live session. I hope he will be able to do the online survey. So just in general, how long will the survey be open, if you do know?
My understanding is that it'll be open all this week and possibly part of next week. Okay, that's the launch that we've been given. We're on a pretty tight timetable to try and get the information, do an analysis of it, and learn what we need to learn. So we can't let it go on too long, but I do know that it's at least a week or a little bit longer than a week that the survey. Now, if they missed the live session or whatever, what they should do is contact wherever the invitation came back and said, is there another one that I might be able to attend if their schedule permits? If not, then they should just do the online survey, because some feedback is better than no feedback. Okay.
Is student life and GT administration concerned that there is an overwhelming number of campus students that have not attended one class in person this semester?
Yes. I mean, that's not ideal. That's not what we really want to happen, Okay, that was never the intention, that we are fully online and that students do not have any engagement in the classroom. So the answer to that question is yes. Okay, we are concerned about that and we're addressing it. All right, I want to reassure you that we are addressing it.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. Does GT have any outdoor spaces for classes to meet, to your knowledge?
The faculty member could opt to use one of those tent areas. They'd have to kind of just let us know in advance so that we can kind of reserve that space. Those were not intended for classes because we wanted to have more social space that students could just be a part of. I do know that there are some faculty who have opted to move their class out onto a lawn occasionally at times, but yeah, there are spaces that a faculty member could choose to do that and set it up with the proper social distancing and stuff. So
per the current policy, the professors have full control over the fact that very few in-person classes are taking place. Per the provost website, there is not a policy requiring a minimum number of in-person meetings for a hybrid course. When will this policy be updated so that professors return to in-person teaching?
yeah, well, you know, there were 3 different models of hybrid for this semester. And so one of the things that changes, I believe that's going to happen for spring, is that there will not be 3 different models, okay? That there'll be a hybrid option that would allow for in-person and virtual for individuals that cannot make it back to campus and stuff. You know, that's one lesson we've learned, okay, in terms of this, because some were meant to be high-touch hybrid, meaning that the student would be in class on a regular basis. Others, depending on the size, meant that some students might be in every other week because Group A would go one week, Group B would go another. But we've learned a lot from just this experience now, and we will be really adjusting it for spring term.
And just in follow-up to that, another parent is asking, when are the classes that were promised to be hybrid this semester, when will they start face-to-face component? By hybrid, most of us understood meetings are supposed to take place several times throughout the semester. 1 or 2 times should not qualify as hybrid.
Yeah.
Expresses that this should be more clear, as you just stated, this it will be moving forward next semester. How many meetings will be?
Exactly. So what I'm going to say is that you know, when an email comes in from a parent and it says that, you know, all my students' courses are hybrid, but they're not meeting. It's hard for us to know what that means because we don't know exactly what classes, right? So if we receive more detailed information in terms of, you know, the course and, you know, when it meets, the time, stuff like that, then we can actually go back and see how that course was defined from the beginning. And that would help us to, you know, have a conversation with the professor or the TA around what's happening there as far as the hybrid. Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it seems that we have another great question right here. There are lots of things going on, and I appreciate that. It is still hard for first years who are introverted and being cautious about COVID to make the first step to make connections. You are doing a great job. I wonder if there isn't a way to reach kids who aren't going to take that first step, like having RAs introduce themselves on their hall or form of virtual pods with first years and set up weekly meetings with RAs just to chat and make it mandatory for the first couple meetings so even shy students will join in. Thank you for all you do.
All right. Great point. Great point. Look, we know we have a group of students who, you know, due to shyness, this doesn't come as easily for them. I mean, we know that. There's and years of being at Tech, you know, I've experienced that too. RAs should have already made that connection, honestly, with students in introducing themselves to the students and checking in with the student and stuff. You know, if a parent is that concerned about that isolation, then what I'm going to suggest they do is they email me privately. Email me and let me figure out a way that we can make some of this happen and begin to figure out how to way of engaging their student. So because a student who's in isolation and experience loneliness is not a good situation for us and for them. So please email me privately on that.
It seems like there's a real disconnect with GT and first years. This year, I was a little disappointed with the activities the week before classes started, with the dining choices, with the cancellation of outside club sports. These activities allow students to connect outside of the classroom. What is GT doing now to help with this?
Well, intramurals has started, different, not all of them, but different versions of intramurals has started. And so we've introduced that back into the mix of things. You know, more in-person things are happening. Yes, I would say Welcome Week, you know, was heavily on the virtual side of things. And I think that had more to do with just where we were in the semester, what was going on with COVID, and being very, very careful and cautious, right? But as I said, you know, this is kind of things that are unfolding in stages here and in phases. And we're at a place now where we keep introducing more and more. And so there are, and you can check with the CRC website and the CRC staff about the different intramural options that are there. I do want to say that, you know, when I drive home every evening and I drive by the CRC, there are students on the field doing all kinds of things. There are students running the track, there are students playing soccer, again, you know, appropriately, but they are engaged out there and they're not teams. These are not teams. These are just students who are either in intramurals or, you know, doing a small group going over and doing this. So.
Are you finding that those students that have participated in unsafe behavior and have been tested positive for COVID are now abiding by school recommendations?
Yes. Yes, again, I want to say that, you know, I mean, we're very, very fortunate at Georgia Tech that we have a pretty compliant population of students. And, you know, it was a little bit bumpy in the beginning, and everybody was happy to see each other, to come back, to meet each other. And the natural tendencies is to kind of connect. I mean, that's kind of what we all do, right? And that's what students wanted to do. Okay, a lot of was learned during that time. They learned a lot about the consequences of that and how to do it more appropriately, how to do it more safely. The point, though, is not to not do it. Okay, we're not saying don't do it. We're saying do it safely, do it appropriately, but you still should be connecting and, you know, being in the company of each other. And I think that's been the change. So we have seen many, many more students. When I walk the campus, okay, it is the rare situation that I see a student without a face covering on. Okay, most students are walking about the campus with the face covering as we've asked them to. Okay, I attended the football game this past weekend, which was reworked completely. They have an unbelievable plan that they put in place there. Good social distancing. Student section, you know, was organized in a way that really allowed for that social distancing, but also to be engaged at this fun event. And, you know, again, I have to say, every once in a while, an usher had to remind a student to put a face covering on, but the majority of students were there and were abiding by the guidelines, and that was one of the guidelines. To be in the stadium. So, so yeah, I'm really pleased at how students have responded.
And Dean Stein, just in follow-up to that, what repercussions or protocols are in place to reprimand organizations or Greek organizations or groups of residents who perhaps don't follow our social distance guidelines?
Well, I mean, you know, in any violation, what we have are our codes of conduct. Okay, that's what we go back to, all right? It's not arbitrary. We have an honor code on the academic side. We have a code of conduct on the non-academic side, and then we have a student organization code. So we can address issues that become known to us from those three different codes and figure out what violation the organization or the individual student has been engaged in, and then take appropriate action. Okay, so we're doing that. We do that every semester, whether we're in COVID times or not. And we'll continue to do that.
Great. And like you said, I think our students have been responding very well.
Correct. That's right. And we do have that website that we set up where students can let us know of something. I know there was some concern about that it felt like we were trying to get students to snitch or ratch on each other, and that's not really what that was intended. What I can tell you is that the site has been used very appropriately. We're not getting hundreds and hundreds of things come in, but the things that are brought to our attention are things that we can then go back and address, okay? And sometimes we address it through education, and then sometimes we address it through, or through the code. So it's a combination of things.
And what is the name of that website, Dean Stein?
The CoCert. You can put it out to the parents that the CoCert website that we set up. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Can final exams at least be done in person? It removes all kinds of problems with remote cheating.
Well, look, I mean, we're monitoring remote cheating, so I want to, also caution you on that. We are monitoring that very, very closely. Faculty are very, very aware of it, and they have put things in place to actually detect if an individual's potentially cheating on exams and stuff. So the challenge with doing in person is that not everybody's here, so it can't be required that way because not every student is around and on campus and stuff. So, but regardless of whether they're here or not, if they're taking exams virtually, there have been some safeguards that have been put in place there. And I haven't had many, but I can tell you that some students have been referred over to the Office of Student Integrity for possible violation of the honor code.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Dean Stein, I know you spoke about this briefly in terms of isolation and anxiety. Can you give any more tips or advice to parents? The comment is, my first year is eating meals in his dorm alone. So I'm assuming that it's hard for him to connect or just make friends and just having to, eat meals alone.
Okay. All right. So, there's where I would suggest that the student make contact with the RA on the floor and say, my experience so far has been that I'm eating meals alone. And could you maybe think about putting something together where you would, invite a few of us that want to come together and have a meal together and have the RA facilitate that. That's not an inappropriate request to ask the RA to do, okay? And that's where I would start, because if the student, him or herself, cannot do that, just turn to someone on the floor and say, would you like to join me for a meal? Then let's work through the RA staff and helping to facilitate that. After this, I promise that I will go back to the residence life staff and I will speak through some of these issues and encourage the RAs to do this with students and to not work with the thought that every student is successfully doing this on their own. Okay, so I'll ask them to really spend more time in trying to facilitate connection.
Dean Stein, is it possible to get the USG to make testing mandatory for all students and employees? How can we contact them to voice our concern?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, honestly. I mean, that's the university system has to make that decision and stuff. The best thing to do would be to work through the institute here and let your thoughts be known, and then the Institute can carry that message to the USG. I think it's a message that they've already heard. I don't think it would be a brand new message, but that's the best way to do it. Not to overwhelm or inundate them with messaging and stuff, but to work through the Institute here in carrying that message forward.
Great. The care options that were run out of the classroom buildings last spring, seems like we may have a typo, but can those be relocated near the East and West Campus residence halls for the drop-in counseling? Maybe near the housing offices near East and West campuses.
So the GT care kinds of, just having someone available within those settings to meet with students?
Yeah, I think that's what we're alluding to.
Okay, all right. That is something that we could consider in terms of kind of maybe working with housing and having temporary satellite kinds of arrangements where someone could be present and on the different sides of campus to be available. I do want to say that if a student is on campus, they can make their way over to the flag building or to, contact GT Care and make that connection. They're responding every day to students who are contacting them who are in need of wanting to talk to someone. Okay, and I would highly encourage that. Okay. And for the student who's experiencing that isolation and that sense of loneliness, they too should have that conversation with the counselor and talk that through or whatever. Okay, because what we're trying to do is to kind of get an understanding of what's going on. The therapist, the counselor can help them think through some strategies. What would address this in a way so that the student doesn't really shift to a place of getting too depressed about all of it. Okay, that we don't want that to happen. And so anything we can do in terms of preventative measures would be better. But the counselors are available, and I think that you don't have to be clinically depressed to have that conversation. You can have that conversation with a counselor to just say, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I've been going through, and I'm trying to figure out how to make these connections, and let the counselor kind of assist in that conversation and helping think through strategies. The other option would be that the student can contact the Dean of Students office. We have dean's appointments. If the student is not comfortable talking to a counselor, because some students don't want to be talking to counselors, they are very welcome to speak to one of the deans. I meet with students, and so I have a wonderful staff, and they join me in conversations with students on all kinds of issues and stuff. So we're available also.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dean Stein. Will all remote quizzes, tests, exams use the proctoring software that requires students to keep moving forward and not go back to check their previous work?
I'm not sure about that. That's more of a technical question on the academic side that I don't know, but let's note that question and we will find the answer out. I really don't know the answer to that. I should, but at this moment I don't know the answers. No.
And perhaps we can have them email testing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. We'll do that. Here's another great question that applies to a lot of students and parents. Will there be room for students that are now at home to be housed on campus for the spring semester?
Yeah, great question. That is a great question. So now is the moment. If you're thinking that you want to return physically to campus and live in residence, now is the time to contact the Office of Housing and Residence Life and to ask the question and put your name on the list. Okay, because mid-year there are students that graduate, there are students that opt out for a semester. In a more normal time, there would be students going study abroad, things like that. So spaces do open up for spring term. So I would suggest that they make the connection and have the conversation with housing now if they are interested in living in residence. And making the connection and getting on the list does not obligate you until you sign that contract and until the first day of the semester, spring term. So,
Great. For those students who choose to stay here after Thanksgiving break, will they have dining and meal options available?
there probably will be dining and meal options, but I bet you it's going to be scaled back. It's going to be limited. So, and again, they will be putting that information out so that students can make informed choices about, what they would need to do if they're going to choose to stay during that time, right? So that is something that I know is already in discussion. So.
This time, there seems to be a group called Jackets Infect Jackets that have been going around taking pictures, some of them into private apartments, peeping into events, and completely illegal of some students that they feel are not gathering properly, and then posting them on social media. This makes students afraid and adding lots of anxiety, especially during midterms. What are you doing to stop this?
Well, I mean, the students can opt to put something online. We can't stop them from doing that. And, I don't know how they're taking these pictures and stuff. That is something that I've heard. And occasionally students will send me things that have been posted on that website and stuff. What I would say for the individual student, so let's start from that, is that, any student should kind of be aware of the situation they're walking into, what's going on there, and assess, is this a place that I should be? And do I feel safe here? All right, do I feel that most of the people around me have taken the right precaution and stuff? If the answer is no, then they should just find a way to kind of back away from it and leave, okay, and not get caught up in something. Okay, if everyone feels like this is, we're all taking precaution and we're keeping each other safe, then stay. But I think it's really, what's more important is the individual students. It goes back to that first piece that I was saying in terms of self-regulation and self-control, of kind of assessing situations, knowing what you're into at that point, and making a decision to leave, to opt out of something if it's not safe.
If academic engagement is so important, why is Georgia Tech allowing asynchronous classes? That makes it almost impossible to engage with the professor and other students in the class.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, the response to that, I believe, is that, we have students from all over the world in different time zones. And so what you have to understand is that if, the reason for that is that you don't then force a student who's in another part of the world to have to be up at 3 a.m. for class, right? That they can go back and, they can review it whenever they are, in terms of their time zone and stuff. So some of it was just to meet the needs of as many students as possible. Person is right. It does make it a little bit more challenging, but there again, initiative matters in terms of the student making the connection to the professor and the TA. I can't stress that enough, that that's a very, very important piece in the absence of these other things that typically would be present.
Thank you so much, Dean Stein. And do you just have 5 more minutes? I just want to be cognizant of your schedule.
I have about 2 more minutes. It's almost 1, is it? Sorry.
Yes, 12:59.
Yeah. So about 2 minutes would be.
Okay. Can professors be encouraged to give summative exams before Thanksgiving and then give assignments afterward while kids are at home? Online exams are more stressful.
Yes, they can. Nobody's stopping faculty from doing that. And my impression is that some faculty will do that. Some faculty may have that exam prior to the break and then do other work that's required, that's due. But yes, the faculty can do that, all right? And there again is why I think a student should raise the question with the faculty member as to, can we talk a little bit about how the semester is going to end and how things will wrap up in terms of assignments and exams. It's a very appropriate question for students to be asking their professors.
Great. And I'll just ask you one more question, and then we'll let you be. Are you confident that students will come back to campus in the spring should an out-of-state student and family remove items from the dorm at Thanksgiving?
So the question, the way I'm interpreting that question is, do we think that in between semesters that we will decide to close?
Yes. How confident?
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't. I mean, honestly, there's nothing that right now leads me to believe that this model would shift, okay, to that space. So, you know, I can't predict the future, but in the moment, the answer would be no. I don't believe that's going to happen. Okay.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dean Stein, for taking the time to chat with all the parents and families today on the webinar. We had a great amount of people attending. To all the parents and families who perhaps joined in late, please don't worry. This webinar is recorded, and we will publish it on our YouTube channel and our website, parents.ghtech.edu, under the Stay Connected tab. That way you can access this webinar recording and previous webinar recordings. But once again, thank you so much for Dean Stein for joining us, and we hope the rest of you have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the semester.
Thank you, families, and thank you for supporting your students, and please stay connected to us. Thank you.